Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri. Rabbi zidni ilma. In the name of Allah, my Lord, open up for me my chest and ease my task for me. My Lord, increase me in knowledge. Today's topic, I decided to talk about taqwa. That this is quite an important topic. To be honest, I don't think I'll be able to do justice with this topic just with one presentation. It's quite a huge topic, I must admit. Now, this word taqwa and its derived forms appears about 250 times in the Qur'an, so it's quite significant. I've selected those verses which sort of really stood out to me, and I'd like to present them to you today, inshallah. Now we'll get started. Now this is usually referred to those who fear Allah. And the question is, does taqwa really mean fear, brothers and sisters? Now we're going to look at some verses here. Now the word taqwa, the root word comes from waw, qaf, ya, and it has the following meanings: to protect, save, preserve, ward off, guard against evil and calamity, be secure, take as a shield, regard the duty, muttaqi, the word muttaqi, one who guards against evil and against that which he harms and injures, and is regardful of his duty towards human beings and God. So it's got this meaning of to preserve, to protect, and to ward off. Okay. Now, if you go to this link here, corpusquran.com, I'll just go to it very, very quickly just to show you some examples here. Very quickly. I don't know if you can see it. It's probably very bright, brothers and sisters, but I'll just quickly go through it. Now, its derived forms appears over 250 times in the Quran, and it usually has the meaning of to protect, to save, protection, fear, righteousness, feared, righteousness, fear, conscious. It's also got the meaning of consciousness. And fear. If you keep going down, be conscious, righteous. If you keep going, become righteous, God conscious. You keep going down, because it appears so many times, brothers and sisters. Just bear with me. Fear, righteousness, piety. Keep going down. Feared, God-fearing, righteous, precaution, defender, protector. I'm happy to share the PowerPoint presentation so you guys can have a look yourselves. Okay, now just moving on, inshallah. Now, the very first place where the word muttaqin, the word taqwa appears is actually at the very beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah. It's quite important, brothers and sisters. Now, chapter 2, verse 1 to 5, we all know these verses. Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That is the book in which there is no doubt, a guidance for those who are muttaqin. Okay? Then it continues, says, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is telling us exactly who these people are. الَّذِينَ, those who, if you follow the verses, right? Those who believe in the unseen and establish salah and spend out of what we've provided for them, and who believe in what was being revealed or sent down to you, Muhammad alayhi salam, and what was revealed before you. And in the hereafter they are certain. Those are upon guidance from their Lord. Ulaika ala al-huda, from their Lord. And it is those who are the successful. Now Allah Azza wa Jal straight off the bat has told us exactly who the muttaqin are. Allah Azza wa Jal gives us a description very early on in the Quran, which is amazing. Subhanallah. Now moving on. Again in Surah Baqarah, verse 21 to 22, it reads, O mankind, worship or serve your Lord, who created you and those before you, that you may become righteous. Now they use the word righteous here. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Who made for you the earth a bed, and the sky a ceiling, and sent down from the sky rain, and brought forth thereby its fruits as provision for you. So do not attribute to Allah equals while you know. Okay? Do not ascribe partners to Allah. Now here's another verse to reflect upon, verse 40. O children of Israel. Now just as a side note here, brothers and sisters, now we should not brush off verses just because it addresses another group of people. For example, when it says, O children of Israel, or if it says, Ya Ahl al-Kitab, we shouldn't just brush these verses off and arrogantly say, this doesn't refer to us. Be very careful, brothers and sisters. We should reflect upon all the verses and take heed. Okay, pay attention. O children of Israel, remember my favor which I've bestowed upon you, and have fulfilled my covenant, that I will fulfill your covenant, and be afraid of me. Now look at these words here. Wa iyaya, of me, of thee, farhabun. The word farhabun is there. And this translates to be afraid of or to have fear. Now, the next verse straight after this is at verse 41. Look what it reads. And believe in what I have sent down, confirming that which is already with you, and be not the first to disbelieve in it. And do not exchange my verses for a small price. And now look at the word, the same words are used here. Wa iyaya. This time it says fattaqun. Here it says farhabun, and here it says fattaqun, and they've translated that as fear me. Now Allah Azza wa Jal is showing us that there's a distinction between having fear and having taqwa. Alright? And Allah Azza wa Jal is pointing out that there's a distinction here. Okay? There's more to come, inshallah. Here's another verse, same chapter, verse 177. I love this verse. Righteousness is not, laysa al-birra. Al-birra is not that you turn your faces to the east or the west, but rather righteousness is one who believes in Allah and the last day, the angels, the book, the prophets, and gives wealth in spite of love for it to the relatives, orphans, the needy, the traveler, those who ask for help, and the freeing the captives or the slaves. Establishes salah and gives zakah, those who fulfill their promise when they are promised, and those who are patient in poverty and in hardship. And what's strange, he says during battle. The words during battle are actually not there in the Arabic, right? But moving on. And those are the ones who have been true, and it is those who are al-muttaqin. Now Allah has given us a full description, right? Those who believe in Allah and the last day and the angels and the books and the prophet that gives wealth, etc., etc. These are the muttaqin, brothers and sisters. Inshallah, I'm going to put this in the dot forms at the end to sort of really get us thinking. Okay? Now, moving on. Verse 180, Surah Al-Baqarah again. Now look at this, brothers and sisters. Prescribed for you. Kutiba alaykum. Prescribed. When death approaches any one of you and leaves wealth, that he should make a bequest or a will. Al-wasiyatu, for the parents and near relatives according to what is acceptable. A duty upon al-muttaqin. Now Allah is prescribing for those who are muttaq, those who have taqwa, that Allah is commanding us, or is prescribing for us that you write up a will, a bequest, right? Pay attention to that kutiba alaykum. Now have a look at this next verse here. If you just fast forward 3 verses in the same chapter you read, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, oh you who have believed. Kutiba alaykum. Now the same words are used here, brothers and sisters. Is fasting, as-siyamu. Fasting as it was decreed upon those before you. For what reason? That you may become righteous. La'allakum tattaqun. So you can have taqwa. Fasting is prescribed to us. Now there's a brother from the channel, Muhammad from God. May Allah bless you, brother, if you're listening to this. He actually pointed these verses out to me. Now it's funny how the Muslims, the traditional Muslims, they tell us that fasting is fard upon it. It's one of the pillars of Islam, right? But the Quran uses the same words, kutiba alaykum, to describe, to make up a will for your families. How come the will is not part of the pillars of Islam? Isn't that strange? Subhanallah. Shout out to your brother if you're listening to this. Now here's another verse, 197. Hajj is during the well-known month. So whoever has made Hajj obligatory upon himself, thereby, there is to be for him no sexual relations and no disobedience and no disputing during the Hajj. And whatever good you do, Allah knows of it. And take provision. But indeed, the best provision is fear of Allah. It says, at-taqwa. With the definite article, at-taqwa. And fear me, wattaquni, O you people of understanding. Now the verse, if you look at another translation, this is interesting, brothers and sisters. I mainly use the Sahih International Version. There's others I use as well. I use the Muhsin Khan and a few others. But if you notice here, this is the Maududi translation, right? This is very popular. Now see where it says fear Allah. Here it says best provision of piety. See, he uses the word piety here, right? Menavan said and said, beware of disobeying me. Here it says fear me, and he says beware of disobeying me. Isn't that interesting? If you look at this other translation here, this is from Pikfal, another very popular translation. Here it says, keep your duty unto me. See that, brothers and sisters? And also say ward of evil. Because that's part of the root of that word taqwa, to ward of evil, and to be dutiful and mindful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, here's another verse to reflect upon. Chapter 3, verse 14. Beautified for the people is the love of which they desire, of women and sons and heaped up sons of gold and silver, fine branded horses and cattle and tiled land. That is the enjoyment of the worldly life. But Allah has with him the best return. Now the verse continues. Verse 15, look what it reads. Say, the messenger is told to say to them, shall I inform you of something better than that? Now here in this verse, it's talking about the beauties and the treasures, the bounty of this world, all that provision which we're looking for in this world. Now he says, shall I inform you of something better than that? Subhanallah. For those who fear Allah, ittaqaw, will be gardens in the presence of their Lord, beneath which rivers flow, wherein they'll abide eternally, and purified spouses and approval from Allah. And Allah is seeing of his servants. Now, if you have a look here at verse 16, it continues, those who say, see, alladhina, it gives you a description of those who have taqwa, ittaqaw. Those who say, alladhina yaquluna, our Lord, indeed, we have believed and forgive us our sins and protect us from the punishment of the fire. If I can remember the Arabic, رَبَّنَا إِنَّنَا آمَنَّا فَاغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. I don't want to misquote the verse, inshallah. It's a beautiful supplication. So here it's showing us those who say these words, those who supplicate to Allah, are those who have taqwa. And the verse continues at verse 17, it reads, the patient. See, it's continuing. It's giving us a full description here of those who have taqwa. The patient, the true, the obedient, those who spend in the way of Allah, and those who seek forgiveness before dawn. Do you see how Allah Azza wa Jal does bayyina of his verses? وَيُبَيِّنُ اللَّهُ آيَاتِ. Allah explains his ayat in detail, brothers and sisters. SubhanAllah. Moving on. Now, chapter 3, verse 133 to 135. This is another beautiful verse. And hasten to forgiveness from your Lord. Now, the concept of asking for forgiveness, Allah is telling us that we should hasten to it. We should run to it. We should do it quickly, right? Hasten to forgiveness from your Lord, and a garden as wide as the heavens and the earth, prepared for lil muttaqin, those who have taqwa, brothers and sisters. And the verse continues, who spend in the cause of Allah during ease and hardship, and who restrain anger. Look at that, restrain anger, and who pardon people. Allah loves the doers of good. And those who, the verse continues, when they commit an immorality or wrong themselves, they remember Allah and seek forgiveness for their sins. And who can forgive sins except Allah? And who do not persist in what they have done while they know. Now Allah is giving us a perfect description of those who are muttaqin, brothers and sisters. Now in the same chapter, verse 175, look what it reads. That is only shaitan who frightens you. Now Allah is describing shaitan, how he puts fear in you, this frightens you, right? With his supporters, with his awliya. So fear them not. It says, now the word yukhawwifu, okay? So fear him not, takhafuhum, fear them not, but fear me. Wakhafuni. My apologies, brothers and sisters, if you are indeed believers. Now Allah, again, like the verse here, it's showing us that there is a distinction between those who are muttaqin, and having fear. There's a distinction there, brothers and sisters, okay? Moving on, inshallah. Here's another verse, chapter 6, verse 51. And warn by it. وَأَنذِرْ بِهِ. Now Allah is talking about the Qur'an here. Warn by it. Those who fear, يَخَافُونَ, that they will be gathered before their Lord. For them, besides him, there will be no protector and no intercessor, that they might become righteous. For what reason? لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. My apologies. See, Allah is telling us that we should warn by the Qur'an, right? For what reason? So we can attain taqwa. Here's another verse, again in the same chapter, verse 153. And moreover, this is my path, Allah says, Sirati Mustaqim, which is straight. So follow it, follow the path of Allah, and do not follow otherwise, for you will be separated from his way. This he instructed that you may become tattaqun, la'allakum tattaqun. So Allah is instructing the muttaqin to follow the path of Allah. Here's the question, brothers and sisters. How do we follow the way of Allah? How do we follow Allah? How do we walk behind and imitate and walk behind Allah? Obviously, he sends us messengers, rasulan. So we follow the messengers. in order to become taqwa, brothers and sisters. SubhanAllah. Moving on. Here's another verse. Chapter 7, verse 26. O children of Adam, right? We have bestowed upon you clothing to conceal your privacy, your private part, and as an adornment. But the clothing of the Taqwa, the clothing of righteousness, that is best. That is from the signs of Allah that you'll be reminded. Now this verse sort of got me a little bit confused, but when I reflected upon it, I thought to myself, subhanAllah, there is this element of having the right clothing, brothers and sisters. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is showing us that the way you dress, like clothing has a contributing factor to attaining or to having taqwa, brothers and sisters. Now, if I was to give you an analogy of what I'm talking about, for example, like if there was a woman, I'm just giving this as an example, right? Let's just say there's a woman who's dressed modestly, and there's a woman who's dressed provocatively. Now, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, you could look at a person, you could look at a woman and say, she's dressed modestly, appropriately. And you could look at a woman's dressed provocatively or, inappropriately, and you could sort of see the difference, brothers and sisters. Okay, I'm only giving this as an example, right? So there's this element or there's this aspect of a certain clothing which we need to wear in order to have taqwa, brothers and sisters. In other words, we should be modest in our dress. Okay? Now, here's another verse, chapter 8, verse 29. Now, this verse, there's a channel called Qur'an Study. Qur'an Study, brilliant channel on YouTube. That brother, he actually pointed this verse out to me. If you're listening to this brother, shout out to him, Allah bless you. It's a beautiful verse. Oh, you who believe, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. If you fear Allah, tattaqullaha, if you fear Allah or have consciousness of Allah, He will grant you criterion. Look at that. Furqana. And He'll remove from you your misdeeds and forgive you. And Allah is a possessor of great bounty. So those who have taqwa of Allah, Allah will grant them furqan. So furqan is understood as criteria. Now criteria usually translates to, that ability or that knowledge in order to be able to distinguish what is right and what is wrong, and to be able to distinguish between what is lawful and unlawful, etc. Okay, being able to distinguish between what is right and wrong. SubhanAllah. Here's another verse to think about. Chapter 9, verse 107. And those who took themselves a mosque. Now this is very interesting, this verse. Have a look at this. A mosque. Now the word is masjidan. I'm not going to go into what a masjid means. Masjid usually translates to like a place of gathering or a place of worship. Okay? For causing harm and disbelief and division among the believers. Look at that. And as a station for whoever had warred against Allah and His Messenger before. So subhanAllah, it's really, really interesting. And they will surely swear, we only intended the best. And Allah testified that they are indeed liars. Now Allah is showing you that there is a group of people that build masjids, places of worship, in order to cause mischief and disbelief and disunity. Could you imagine that, brothers and sisters? Now the verse continues at 108. Do not stand, it says for prayer, it doesn't actually say prayer there. Do not stand within it ever. A mosque, la masjidun, founded on righteousness, at-taqwa from the first day, is more worthy for you to stand in. Within it are men who love to purify themselves. Allah loves those who purify themselves. So Allah is telling there's two types of mosques. There's a mosque where they cause mischief and disbelief and disunity, and there's a mosque based on taqwa. Very important, right? The verse continues at verse 109. Then is the one laid the foundation of this building on righteousness, taqwa, and from Allah and seeking His approval better, or the one laid the foundations of his building on the edge of a bank about to collapse? So it collapsed with him into the hellfire of hell. And Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people. SubhanAllah, such a harsh warning. And finally, at verse 110 it reads, their building which they built will not cease to be a cause of skepticism in their hearts until their hearts are cut. In other words, they are stopped. And Allah is knowing of the words. Now here Allah Azza wa Jal is pointing out that there are two types of mosques. Now brothers and sisters, there's a channel by a brother called Quranic Islam. Quranic Islam. He's got a video in there called the tale of two mosques and two prophets, something like that. Please watch that. He explains these verses brilliantly and eloquently. May Allah bless you, brother, if you're listening to this. He talks about how there are two types of mosques and there's even two types of Muhammads. If you listen to that video, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. SubhanAllah. Allah is warning us. There's those that build masjids to cause corruption and disbelief and disunity among the Muslims. And there is a mosque based upon taqwa. So we should build our mosques upon taqwa. Now, just as a side note, brothers and sisters, I just throw this out there. There's a group within Islam called the Ibadiyah. Now, they usually say these are like an offshoot of the Khawarij, right? Of course, we don't know how true that is. But there's a group of the Ibadiyah where they have a mosque in Oman, right? In one of the Muslim countries in Oman, where they have mosques where they welcome everybody, whether they're Sunni, Shia, doesn't matter what they are. And you have Sunnis and Shias that get together and they pray, they offer salah in the same mosque. SubhanAllah, I feel like that's a beautiful thing, brothers and sisters. So we should be building our mosques upon taqwa, not to cause division and disunity. Now here's another verse. Again in chapter 9, verse 150, just fast forward a few verses. And Allah will not let the people stray after He has guided them until He makes clear to them what they should. Now the word here is avoid. Look at this. Lahum, for them, ma, what? Yattaqun. Now, usually that word yattaqun is translated as fear Allah. Fear Allah. But here it says should avoid. Because the word taqwa itself, it can actually mean to avoid or to refrain or to restrain from. SubhanAllah. Indeed, Allah is knowing of all things. Moving on. Chapter 10, verse 6. Indeed, in the alternation of the night and the day, and in what Allah has created in the heavens and the earth, are signs, ayatin, for the people who, liqawmin, for the people, yattaqun, for those who have taqwa. In the alternation of the heaven, of the day and the night, and the heavens and the earth, these are ayat for the muttaqin. Okay, again, I'm going to put this into dot form, brothers and sisters. Chapter 16, verse 52. And to Him belongs whatever is in the heavens and the earth, and to Him is a worship constantly. Then is it other than Allah that you should fear? أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ, is it other than Allah, tattaqun? So here it says fear. Now, of course, the word taqwa could mean to be conscious of, to have righteousness, to refrain from, to be dutiful to Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay, tattaqun. There's another verse. Again, in the same chapter, verse 128, it reads, Indeed, Allah is with those that fear Him. Ittaqaw. He is ma'a. He's with those. Ittaqaw. And those who are doers of good. So Allah is with. He's with the muttaqin. And what's interesting here, if this is the Sahih International, if you look at the Pitfall translation, it reads, Lo, Allah is with those who keep their duty unto Him. See, the word taqwa, ittaqaw, it translates it as duty. And those who are doers of good. And also if you look at, I think it was Yusuf Ali, if I'm not mistaken, and for Allah is with those who restrains themselves. Do you see that word taqwa? Those who restrain for themselves and keep their duty. SubhanAllah. Now here's another verse to think about. Chapter 20, verse 113. And thus we have set it down as an Arabic Qur'an. Set it down. Anzalnahu. And we have diversified therein the warnings that perhaps they will avoid. So the word avoid is there. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. So the word yattaqun, rather than saying fear Him, they put the word avoid. See, to avoid something. Or it would be called them for remembrance or to be a reminder. Here's another verse, chapter 21, verse 48 to 49. We have already given Moses and Aaron the criterion, al-furqana, and a light, wa diya'an, and a reminder, wa dhikrun. For who? For lil muttaqin. Now Allah gives us a little description here. Who fear, look at this. Yakhshawna, their Lord unseen, while they are of the hour apprehensive. Now Allah is showing us here that those who are of the muttaqin, there is an aspect or an element of fear, brothers and sisters. Now, I know a lot of people usually say taqwa equals fear. Now, that doesn't do justice to the word, okay? Now, we can say fear is like an aspect or an element of taqwa, right? But we can't just say, sort of taqwa equals like in an absolute form or like in a mathematical terms. Taqwa equals fear, right? But we can say fear is an aspect or an element of the muttaqin. I hope that makes sense, brothers and sisters. Now, here's another verse, chapter 22, verse 37. Now, this verse is talking about those animals that which are slaughtered in the path of Allah, right, for us to eat. Their meat will not reach Allah, nor will their blood. But what reaches Him is, here it says, piety from you, at-taqwa. So your taqwa, minkum. From us, our level of taqwa reaches Allah Azza wa Jal. Like the meat and because when you really think about this, back in the day, they probably even do this today. Some religions, they would sacrifice animals to sort of serve them to their gods, as if their gods are going to eat and benefit from this. But here, Allah Azza wa Jal is refuting this. For Allah doesn't need your sacrifice. He doesn't need that animal. Like we human beings would need that animal to survive, to eat, right? To survive. But here it says your taqwa, your level, your consciousness, your duty to Him, your refraining from. This reaches Allah Azza wa Jal. Okay? Thus have we subjected them to you, that you may be glorify Allah, that to which He has guided you, and give good tidings to the doers of good. Another beautiful verse there. Now moving on. Chapter 26, verse 10. Now look at this. And mention when your Lord called Moses, saying to him, go to the wrongdoing people. Now the verse continues here. Verse 11 reads, the people of Pharaoh, and say to them, will they not fear Allah? It says, ala yattaqun. Now here it says fear, right? Now look at this verse here. The verse straight after, verse 12, it reads, Moses said, my Lord, indeed I fear, akhafu. See that word fear is there. Akhafu, that which they deny me. So here it says, yattaqun, those who are muttaq, and here it says fear. So Allah is showing us that there's a distinction. But there is an element of fear in taqwa, like the verses I just quoted earlier, brothers and sisters. Okay? I'm going to put these in the dot form, inshallah. Now, again, in the same chapter, verse 142 to 144, it reads, when their brother Saleh said to them, will you not fear Allah? Ala taqtaqun, say the same word here. Ala taqtaqun. Indeed, I am to you a trustworthy messenger. So fear Allah and obey me. It says here, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ. Fear Allah, or have consciousness of Allah, or be wary of Allah, or be dutiful to Allah, and obey me. Subhanallah. And that phrase there, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُونَ, is repeated several times in that surah. Here's another verse to reflect upon, chapter 39, verse 27 to 28. And we have certainly presented for the people in this Qur'an, في هذا القرآن, in this Quran, from every kind of example, min kulli, every, mathali, every kind of example in this Quran, that they may be remember. It is a Arabic Quran without any deviance or any crookedness, that they may attain righteousness. لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. So the people of Taqwa acknowledge that this Quran has in it every kind of example. We shouldn't be looking for this outside of the Quran, brothers and sisters. Okay? Now, moving on. Chapter 51, verse 15 to 19. Indeed, the righteous, al-muttaqin, see, the righteous, or those who are conscious of Allah, those who, you could say also, an element of fear of Allah, will be among the gardens and springs, accepting what their Lord has given them. Indeed, they are before that doers of good. Do you see how Allah Azza wa Jal mentions muttaqin and then gives us the characteristics of who they are? Those who are doers of good, they used to sleep but little of the night. Now, brothers and sisters, this verse really struck me. They would sleep little of the night. Now, I'm not gonna pretend, brothers and sisters, I'm a guy, I love my sleep, subhanallah. But this verse really got me thinking. They sleep little in the night. And in the hours before dawn, they would ask for forgiveness, subhanallah, from their properties, given the right of the needy petitioner and the deprived. So giving from your wealth. Do you see how Allah Azza wa Jalla, He explains those who have taqwa? He gives us a full description. And yet, subhanallah, we are looking for answers outside of the Quran, brothers and sisters. But the Quran is telling you here, you are the muttaqin. Just like with salah, and I made a video on that. The word salah, musallin. Allah tells you exactly who they are, brothers and sisters. But we're looking for these definitions outside of the Quran. Moving on. Chapter 92, 1 to 4. Now look at this, brothers and sisters. This is, subhanallah, this is amazing. By the night when it covers, and by the day when it appears, and by He who created the male and female, indeed your efforts are diverse. So This is chapter 92, verse 1 to 4. Look what it says now. This is remarkable. Now, this verse here, there's a Turkish brother I listen to on YouTube called Mehmet Okuyan. Mehmet Okuyan, he's brilliant. And he pointed this verse out to him. May Allah bless this brother. These verses I'm about to present you are remarkable. As for he who gives, now the word is ata, gives, and fears. Now I put the word fears here, right? Wattaqa, fears. Okay, pay attention. The next verse, verse 6 reads, and believes, wasaddaqa, and believes in the best, bil husna. I hope you're with me so far. The verse continues. At verse 7 it reads, we will ease for him towards ease, lil yusra. Okay, look at the description Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving. Now after this, Allah describes the exact opposite of this, brothers and sisters. Have a real think about this. But as for him who withholds, now see the word here, ata, give, right? Ata. Here it says bakhila, those who withdraws, right? And considers himself to be free of need. Wastaghna. The word wastaghna. This word appears in a few other verses of the Quran where a person claims to be self-sufficient, right? They believe that they are free from need, they are self-sufficient. Okay, the verse continues. And denies, وَكَذَّبَ, and denies. Isn't this opposite of believes, وَصَدَّقَ, opposite of وَكَذَّبَ, and to deny the best? See, the words, the best are here. بِالْحُسْنَى. And finally, look at this. At verse 10 it reads, we will ease him towards difficulty. Look at that. لِلْعُسْرَى. See, لِلْيُسْرَى, ease, and here the opposite is difficulty. Now, brothers and sisters, just to make it easier on the eyes, I've done this. Have a look at this slide here. So at verse 92, verse 5, who gives? Those who give, right? Ata, those who give. The opposite of that is one who withholds. Bakhila, who withholds. That's the opposite. They're the exact opposites of one another, right? And believes, at verse 6, and believes. Wasaddaqa, and believes. So the opposite of believes would be denies. Kathaba. Look at that. See, these are two opposites. Now, the next verse, we say, we will ease for him the path of ease. Lil yusra. The opposite of ease is what? Difficulty. Lil usra. Therefore, Allah is pointing out to us here, is making it very clear and manifest to us that those who have wattaqa, those who are muttaqin, those who have taqwa, that's the opposite of those who consider themselves as being self-sufficient. What would be the opposite of being self-sufficient or being freed of needs and wants? That would be what? To be reliant and dependent, brothers and sisters. So an element of taqwa or an aspect of taqwa is to be reliant and dependent on Allah Azza wa Jal. Look at that. The word taqwa. One of its meanings, or you could say an aspect of the word taqwa, is to be reliant or be dependent on Allah Azza wa Jal. Because only Allah is Al-Ghani. He is free from all needs. Only Allah is As-Samad, self-sufficient. We are the opposite of that, brothers and sisters. You understand what I mean? Beautiful verse. Now just recapping, brothers and sisters, as a conclusion, those of taqwa, the muttaqin, the muttaqun, those of taqwa, Allah Azza wa Jal gives you such examples, and he presents the verses in detail. He gives us a detailed description as to who these people are, right? Now, just recapping again the verses I quoted earlier, chapter 2, verse 3. Those who believe in the unseen, establish salah, and spend of what we have provided them. These are the muttaqin. Those who believe in what was revealed to you, to Muhammad and what was revealed before him, and of the hereafter they are certain. The muttaqin are those who believe in Allah and the last day and the angels and the book and the prophets. The muttaqin are those who give of their wealth despite for their love for it, to their relatives, to the orphans, to the needy, to the traveler, and those who ask for it, and those who fulfill their promise. Look at these descriptions Allah Azza wa Jalla is giving us, brothers and sisters. Those who are patient in poverty and in hardship. Those who have sabr, patient. Those who make a what? A bequest, a will. The muttaqin are those who make a will. Now, just as a side note, brothers and sisters, do you know in the hadith literature, you know what it says? It says, no, you shouldn't make a will. Wallahi, that's what it says. Don't make a will. But here it says, kutiba alaykum. Allah prescribes for you to make a will. He prescribes it on us, brothers and sisters. These are the muttaqin. Continuing, those who fast. Kutiba alaykum. Prescribed for you is som, fasting. I'm not going to get into that word fast. That may be for another time, inshallah. Those who fast are from the muttaq. Those who say, our Lord, indeed we have believed, so forgive us our sins and protect us from the punishment of the fire. Those who supplicate to Allah regularly, brothers and sisters, they are the muttaqin. The muttaqin are those who spend in the cause of Allah during ease and hardship and restrain anger, and they pardon the people. Look at the description, brothers and sisters. What more proof, what more evidence do you need except from the Qur'an itself? Subhanallah. And those who are warned by the Qur'an, وَأَنذِرْ بِهِ, they warned by the Qur'an. Those are the muttaq. Those who have clothing to conceal themselves. So there's an element of clothing yourself, brothers and sisters, to cover your shame, to have humility and humbleness, even to the way you dress. Subhanallah. But of course, that doesn't mean we should dress like Arabs, brothers and sisters. You know, like you should just be dressed modest according to your culture. Subhanallah. Okay, those that avoid the warnings in the Qur'an. The warnings, right? Remember, those that fear their Lord unseen. So there is that element or that aspect of having fear when it comes to taqwa. Okay, so there's that element, there's that aspect of having fear. We're not saying taqwa equals like fear, like in a mathematical sense, but having fear is an element or an aspect of having taqwa. Okay. The Quran having every kind of example in it. The muttaqin are those who acknowledge that the Quran has min kulli mathalan, every kind of example in it. We shouldn't be looking for this outside of the Quran, brothers and sisters. Also, those who sleep but little of the night, remember? Those who sleep little, and in the hours before dawn, they will ask for forgiveness. SubhanAllah, I ask myself this question, brothers and sisters. When was the last time I woke up in the middle of the night and I asked for Allah's forgiveness? Brothers and sisters, we should really reflect upon it. These are the muttaqin. And finally, brothers and sisters, those who are dependent and reliant of Allah. Remember the verses I quoted to you earlier? Had the opposite of Taqwa. The opposite of that is those who believe they're self-sufficient. They believe they are free from all needs and wants. The muttaqin are the opposite of those. Those who are dependent and rely upon their Lord. Subhanallah. Look at all these brothers and sisters. What more does Allah Azza wa Jal have to say about taqwa? Now, brothers and sisters, there actually are other verses in the Quran as well regarding taqwa, but these are the ones that really stood out to me. I urge you, brothers and sisters, to please do your own homework, do your own research regarding taqwa. It's a massive topic. To be honest with you, I could maybe give another 4 or 5 presentations on this. It's a huge topic, but these are the ones that really stood out to me, subhanallah. And brothers and sisters, as a final note, there's a brother who comments regularly on my channel. His name's Shukri Yusuf. Brother, you know who you are. If you're listening to this, I love what you say. He often quotes this in my videos. The Quran is its own dictionary. I'll say that again, brothers and sisters. The Quran is its own dictionary. Look at how Allah describes those of taqwa. Just like Allah describes the musallin, those who perform salat. Allah gives us a full description of who they are. All the descriptions and the details and the knowledge and everything we need is in the Quran, brothers and sisters. Doesn't the Quran say, وَتَفْسِيلَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ? This Quran is an explanation for all things. Doesn't the Quran say, تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ? This Quran is a clarification for all things. Doesn't the Quran say, وَأَحْسَنَ تَفْسِير? Allah has given it the best explanation. Allah goes on further to say, نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ. He's detailed the verses. Not only that, Allah says that He variously explains His ayat. For example, the Quran will say, فُصِّلَتْ آيَاتُهُ نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتُهُ نُصَرِّفُ الْآيَاتِهِ. Allah describes and elaborates and he explains in various ways his verses, brothers and sisters. Here you go, brothers and sisters. I urge you to please do your own homework. Look at the verses yourself. The verses speak for themselves. And as Brother Shukri said, the Quran is its own dictionary, brothers and sisters. I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. Until next time, stay safe. Assalamu alaikum.